It's not Friday without Quick Queries Friday. Hey, welcome to Quick Queries number 56, brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I'm your instructor, Richard Rost. What's Quick Queries? For those of you who haven't seen one before, haven't watched the first 55 episodes, well, basically I take all the questions that people email into me or post in the forums or share on my website. Someone's beaming in. And I put all those together into one video, and we call it Quick Queries. It's queries about access and stuff. So let's see what we got today. First, let's go to the mailbag. Now, sometimes I get emails from my students, and I think that they'd make great examples for quick queries or for even regular videos. But I don't know if the student told me this in confidence or if he or she doesn't mind, having this in the video. So I just put student on the bottom because I don't want to get anybody in trouble if their job knows that they're looking for, something, whatever. Anyways. So if you email me a question, right, make sure you say whether or not it's okay for me to use it in the video. So anyways, this student said, I'm considering applying for a Microsoft certification and would like your advice on which path makes the most sense for my goals. I have strong experience with Access and recently began developing in Power Apps. I enjoy creating solutions and I'm interested in moving into training. Good move. The old saying is those who do, and those who can't teach. I disagree. I think those who are sick of doing teach. I got sick of it. Anyways, I currently work at a mid-sized law firm with both legal and technology responsibilities, and my hope is that my paralegal role can grow into a position focused on training and development with Microsoft products. That sounds fantastic. Now, me personally, thanks for reaching out, student, to pick my brain about Microsoft certifications, but I have to be completely honest. I never put much stock in certifications. In fact, I got a whole page about it on my website. Everybody always asks me, do you offer Microsoft certification? Can you teach me to pass this test? No, not really. I've always found that, if you are looking for a certification because your employer wants it, or if you're looking for, a job where they want someone who's certified, then yes, it makes sense. But for me personally, I've been self-employed for 30 years. So I never have really needed it. Now, some of the moderators on my website have gotten Microsoft Office Specialist Expert certifications. Basically, you take a test from Microsoft and they give you the specialist badge. And then you get the badge on my website too. But as to whether or not it's actually helped their careers or their businesses, that would be a question for them. Feel free to post something in my forums on my website, and I'm sure they would be happy to chime in. Now, for a corporate environment like a mid-sized law firm, certifications can be helpful, particularly if you're eyeing a move into more formal training or a development role. HR usually likes to see something official on a resume. But personally, I've hired people in the past when I used to have employees. I've hired people with certifications that didn't know squat, that I then had to teach everything. And I've also hired people that didn't have any certifications like me that knew more than I did. So to me, certifications doesn't necessarily indicate that you know what you're doing, but it also is like a first level for an employer to be like, okay, at least they've passed the certification. They have to at least be this good as like a base level. Now, since you mentioned branching into Power Apps, which I'm still learning myself, you might want to look at the Microsoft Power Platform certifications. They've got Power Platform Fundamentals and some other Power Apps focused designations. And those might be a little more specialized than a broad MOS exam. But post something in the forums if you don't mind your name out there. And maybe the guys who actually have certifications can give you a little more information. But that's my take. Next up, question from the forums on my website. And see, the forums on my website are public. So if you post there, then I know you're cool with your name being public. So Ray, one of my 10-year students, can you use Copilot integration like you are using ChatGPT and Access? If so, which is better? Pros and cons. Well, Copilot is built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and a couple other apps. But of course, not the redheaded stepchild, the literal redheaded stepchild, which is Access. It is literally redheaded. I don't know why they did that, maybe intentionally, but anyways. So if you want AI inside of Access, you have to connect with a service that uses API calls. And I've got several videos that show how to do that. And if you want to learn how, start here. It's not hard. It's like 5 or 6 lines of code, but you do need to set up an account with OpenAI, and it does cost a little money. You have to get an API key that you put into your Access database. So it's not free, But it's not expensive either, unless you use it tons. Like I use it tons. So yeah, I spend a few bucks a month on it, but it's not bad. Now, I've been using ChatGPT since it came out, and the OpenAI API, which is basically you're talking to the engine behind ChatGPT through code. Just because it was the first major AI that was available, it works well with VBA. Very simple calls. Microsoft offers its own API through Azure, which basically is the same as the GPT models, but it's managed inside of Microsoft's ecosystem, right? So you got to use their servers. So it mainly comes down to convenience versus enterprise needs. OpenAI is quick, easy, and it's great for individual developers like me. Azure Copilot, they call it, is better suited for larger companies that need, Microsoft 365 integration, compliance needs, security controls, that kind of thing. Both can work in Access, but since there's no built-in support, you've got to wire it up yourself, like Scotty with the engines. But I teach you how to do it. So is there any benefit to using Microsoft? No, not really. No. And there are a lot of other AIs out there that have similar APIs that you can connect to. But I think ChatGPT is the best. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. And maybe once Microsoft gets around to actually integrating Copilot into Access at the application level, maybe then I'll start recommending it. But until then, no. Okay, next up. One of my favorite sayings is, if you set it, you got to forget it. In other words, if you open a record set or set an object variable, you should clear it when you're done by setting it to nothing. Here's an example, right? We set a couple of record sets here for food and log and stuff, and then at the end, we set them to nothing. And that's because this memory should be cleared by Access automatically when the function exits, but it doesn't always, especially if there's an error thrown or something. There's a million reasons why over time Access has what's called memory creep. In other words, just slowly your Access database isn't the best at cleaning up after itself. That's why it's always good to reboot your database daily if it's running constantly. Now, a couple of sharp-eyed students, I got more than one comment on this, believe me, notice that I don't always do that with set db equals current db when I make a database variable. Now, you guys are not wrong to point that out, okay? It's not a bad idea to do that, but it's not really necessary either. And I don't like going over this unless it's like a really advanced lesson, because the reason why is really technical, and I don't want to confuse beginner programmers. Just it's a good rule to follow. If you set it, you got to forget it, right? But this is basically a pointer. But for those of you who care, here's the technical jargon. So a record set and other types of object variables like that, they're actual real objects in memory. They hold space. They reserve space. They hold rows, fields, buffers, sometimes even locks on database pages or records. And if you don't close them, those resources can stay tied up until VBA eventually decides to clean them up. Sometimes it doesn't, and that can cause problems. So a record set's an actual block of memory address. Okay, it's an actual block of space in your system's memory. But what you get back from this is actually just a pointer to the database itself. It doesn't reserve a lot of memory. Okay, it's not setting aside a block of space and saying, hey, we're going to call this first name, or we're going to, put the records from this set of records here in this space of memory. It's just saying that just goes to the database. Like some other languages like C, C++, other low-level languages, you can declare variables that actually reserve a block of memory, or you can create a pointer that just points to something else. And that pointer by itself doesn't take up much space. It just references the real thing. So a record set is like an actual chunk of memory reserved for data, copy of the records that you're working with. But a database reference from current DB is just a pointer to the database engine. And once the procedure ends, the pointer disappears. And even if it doesn't, it doesn't take up much, a couple bytes. Now, VBA doesn't really have pointers, but it does something similar if you're familiar with passing variables by ref or by val. Okay, let's say you got a variable, like a global variable or whatever, you got first name in it, right? That takes up, 7 bytes, let's say. Okay, now, if you want to send this into a function or a subroutine, but you want to work with a copy of that data so you don't accidentally mess up the original, you send it by val. All right, so you declare a function, and then by val, s is a string. So s equals a copy of that data. So now you're taking up 14 bytes of memory, roughly. And there's roughly, just stick with me here. Okay? Now, the default actually is by ref. If you don't specify anything, you get by ref, which means you're actually passing a pointer to that memory address to the function. So if you change it, you're changing the original, but in here, it doesn't take up more memory. It just points to this stuff up here. So when you pass s as a string in, you're not taking up 14 bytes of memory, you're taking up 7. But changes to s in here will change first name. If you don't believe me, try it. In fact, I got a whole video on this topic on my website. It's a 5-year-old TechHelp video, so go watch it. It's pretty good. All right, so when you reserve a record set, when you create a record set, you're creating this, a copy of a bunch of records in memory. When you make a pointer to a database object, you get that if you're pointing to current DB. You just get a pointer to the database. That's why it's not critical if you clear it. Whoops, if not critical, my slides are a little bit off. It's not critical if you don't clear it. You should, though. It's not a bad idea to get in the habit of doing it. All right? My best practice rule of thumb is still, if you set it, you gotta forget it. There's nothing wrong with putting set db equals nothing down here. All right? It's a good habit to be in. I just don't always do it because I know the back of my mind, you don't have to. So you might catch me not doing it. But I should do it when I'm teaching this stuff. I really should. Right? It's not critical, but it keeps your code consistent, especially when you're trying to teach people. And you don't run into trouble later if you change that database object, because this is only valid if you're working with current DB. If you set up a database pointer to a different database object, you might reserve a whole different block of memory. And again, we're getting into really complicated stuff, but if you're just working with current DB, that's not an issue. But what is an issue is that you could get your own coffee mug that's got that on it right there on my merch store. I got mine sitting on my access shelf right next to my book and my MVP award. So yeah, get yours today. Next up, one of my students, Mika, asked how to deal with situations where you want to make sure users don't enter illegal combinations of data in a form. For example, let's say you got two things that can be paired together, but not every possible combination is valid. And the question should be, do you build the form that never allows a bad combination, or is there another way? Now, this, of course, assumes that basic indexing or even composite indexing doesn't solve the problem. And it's going to take a ton of complicated VBA that might slow down the data entry process because you've got to search for thousands and thousands of other records in the database to make sure the one you're entering now is valid. And that's a situation that doesn't come up a lot. Like once a month, it might have, like a rare instance. And there's a whole thread with screenshots, and my moderators like Matt are doing a great job of helping. And this went back and forth for a while. But the solution to this problem isn't necessarily what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is sometimes it's okay to allow possible invalid data to keep things flowing if it's something that doesn't happen forever. All right, I've dealt with this situation in databases I've built before, especially when you're dealing with really, really big databases, especially if you're dealing with networking information or stuff that's over the web. You're working with SQL Server. And, to update a record, if you've got to go and do a bunch of DLOOKUPs and find things that, might conflict, but it only rarely happens, a product that so-and-so, you know what I'm saying? One of those rare instances. But every single time you add or edit a record, it's got to do this lookup that takes 3 minutes. You have to sometimes balance the ease of data entry with that kind of a security lookup to see if it's a valid combination or not, especially if it's not critical. I had this one client where they shipped a bunch of products, but from the time the order went in the system to the time they actually shipped, it had to be produced and all this stuff. There was a week or two in there where they had time to discover if there were any problems with the order. So the solution that I recommended was, okay, let your people put the orders in so they don't have to sit there and slow their workday down with lookup after lookup after lookup. And then once the order's in the system, since we've got at least a couple of days until it goes into production, let's run a nightly event. right? And have the nightly event at 3 o'clock in the morning check through all the new orders that were entered and make sure they're valid. And then the next morning when you come in, it could flag it and say, you know what? This customer placed an order that's invalid based on all of these other reasons. So instead of slowing down the sales reps and the people on the floor while they're entering in an order, the nightly event can do it. I have something similar on my website. If a user signs up, let's say they sign up as a silver member on my website, right? And then they go away for a couple days, they come back, they're not logged in, they forgot they signed up, and so they sign up again. Well, my order form that you use to sign up doesn't do a database check to go and see, hey, you're already in there. Yeah, I probably should, but I flag it at night with a nightly event because it's two separate systems. And this way, just at night at 3 in the morning, it runs through all these checks. That's one of them. And it will at least tell me. So the next morning, I'd be like, oh, hey, you already have a membership. So we'll just take what you paid and put it toward the next month, or I'll give you a refund. It's that kind of thing. I don't want to slow down their data entry. Right? So it's these kinds of things you can do. You could do it in a nightly event instead of slowing down all of your workers. So that's just something I wanted to share. So do you have to make every data entry perfect? No, as long as you can check for it later. And of course, this assumes that it's not critical, right? And it assumes you've got some time for the nightly event to catch that problem. If it's something you need to know right away, like you're shipping immediately, then yeah, you got to do the lookup then. Or at least you could have it as a background process, so that your server does it in the background while you can continue doing other work, and then it can pop a message back to you and say, "Hey, nope, can't ship that order." Okay, so there's always a balance, and this big long message thread where they're going back and forth with stuff kind of reminded me to talk about this because I don't ever think I've talked about it before, and that's what these quick queries are for, is for me to just brain fart against everything for you guys. So just sharing my decades of experience with this stuff. So I've had to do this for a couple of clients. Okay, let's head over to the YouTubes. Bizkadil says, great video, learned a lot. I also can't find the links of the next steps mentioned in the video. Can you please share the link? This one comes up at least every couple of weeks. I got to point people to the where are the links video. It's not your fault though. YouTube does a good job of hiding them. There's a description box down here and you got to click on show more and then that'll open up and you'll see all the links in there. Okay. Next up, I get this comment once in a while. Shafera, thank you for your dedication and enthusiasm to share your expertise in the field. You're welcome. I have one question though. I've noticed some of your videos are reserved only for paid users. However, some of us can't afford to do so, like in my case, where we come from less privileged countries. He's from Ethiopia. Any way you might extend your generosity to cover such a scenario? Well, thank you for your kind words and for sharing your situation. I completely understand that in some parts of the world, the US dollar doesn't stretch very far, and I never expect everyone to pay. That's exactly why I put so much time into creating free content, like this video. There's over 1,100 free TechHelp videos on my channel, plus free beginner courses and lots of other stuff that you don't have to pay for. There's literally hundreds of hours of training available to anyone everywhere, free of charge. But at the same time, this is what I do for a living. So I do need to reserve some lessons and some videos and create some extra value so that people will pay for memberships and my courses in order to support what I do, which is producing videos. And if I didn't generate any revenue, then I wouldn't have the time to create all this material and I'd have to go get a real job and then there'd be 0 videos on my website and my YouTube channel. So I really appreciate your enthusiasm for learning, and your message does mean a lot to me. But please know I'll continue to make as many high quality videos as I can for my channel so that everyone, no matter where they live and no matter what they have for an income, can still learn from my materials. But I do have to have some extra stuff that are for members only and for paid students because I got to pay my bills too. So, but thank you for your comment. And it would be nice if I could just do free videos on YouTube and earn enough from, the small amount that I get from YouTube advertising dollars, but it's nowhere near enough. 90% of what I do is microsoftaccess, which is what I love and what I'm an expert in. But the pool of Access users is much, much smaller than like people that do cat videos. So while there are a lot of YouTube content creators out there making millions of dollars a year, trust me, I am not one of them. I make enough, and I'm happy that I can do this as my full-time job. But what I get from YouTube advertising is just a drop in the bucket compared to what I need to survive every month. So I rely on paid memberships and my paid courses to pay my bills. So next up, Razik300 says he created a database, and after 6 or 7 months, it's very slow on the network. So please give me some suggestions to make it go fastly. Well, definitely. Make sure, obviously, make sure your network is up to par, right? Make sure it's a wired network connection. Access performs very poorly over Wi-Fi. Check your network speed. Make sure that's solid. Use Cat6 cabling, quality switches and routers. Do a network test, right? Ping, traceroute, all that stuff. Look for latency, drop packets. There's tons of free Test My Network software out there. Just download a utility and try it, right? See what's changed. Make sure no one else is saturating the network with large file transfers, video streaming, gaming. I used to have that problem with my employees back in the 90s. We'd set up a network in the office to run, our database for the business. And then, around lunchtime, people be on there playing Duke Nukem and downloading stuff. And I mean, come on, guys. That was before internet was really, really high speed. So as soon as someone got online, I knew about it. But as far as, past your network, check your access database. Make sure it's split properly. You got back end and front end. The back end's on the tables on the server, right? Your front end is on every machine. Every local machine has to have a copy of the front end. You don't share the front end on the network. That's a recipe for slowness and disaster. It's much more easily corrupted. Perform a compact and repair on the front end and the back ends. Okay? Review your indexing. Since you said it ran fine at first, but after 6 or 7 months it's slowing down, that tells me also that your database is growing, right, as you're adding stuff. Now it's time to start looking into run things more efficiently. Yeah, you got your database working, but now you got to take some time and to optimize it, right? Check your indexes. Any field you do searching and sorting on needs to be indexed, okay? If you're running opening a continuous form that's sorted by first name, last name, both of those fields need to be indexed. Look for design inefficiencies, pulling, a select star, pulling all the fields down when you don't need them from big tables. Calculated fields, lots of DLOOKUPs that don't need to be there. Check how much data you've actually added. Access works up to a 2 gigabyte limit for your backend data. If you're approaching that, I don't know what kind of stuff you're feeding into this database, but if your database is growing in size, it's going to get slow. Like I always say in my classes, right? A big database is a slow database. So if you're getting big, it might be time to start thinking about SQL Server, whether you install it locally in your network or, get an online version. And of course, that back-end machine, well, all your machines really, the bigger your database gets, the more processing power you need. Make sure you got decent hardware, right? RAM, CPU, all that stuff. Plenty of extra hard drive space. If there's not enough hard drive space, if you're running low on drive space, there's swap file information that has to be written and read to the hard drive. So make sure you got plenty of drive space. If you've got any antivirus software that you've installed lately, aside from what comes with Windows, right? The Windows Defender or Microsoft Protection, whatever they call it today, used to be called Windows Defender. That's all you need. If you got McAfee or any of these other weird virus scanners that are out there, Norton, whatever, get rid of it. They're unnecessary. They'll slow you down. And some of those, they do real-time scanning of your ACCDB file. I had this problem with, Norton Antivirus years ago, right? Everything worked great for a year. And then all of a sudden they call me. It's like the database slowed to a crawl. I go in there and I look and I'm like, did you install anything recently? Oh yeah, we just installed Norton on all of our machines. Oh, okay. Here's your bill. That's what's causing the problem. I disabled Norton and everything went back to running perfectly fine because that virus scanner is scanning that ACCDB file. And it's slowing down the read and writes to it. Make sure all of your users are on the same version of Access. I've seen performance problems where you got most people are running, the newest version 365 and one person in the back is running Access 2016. That can cause problems and slowdowns, believe it or not. So thanks for the question. After rattling off all of that off the top of my head, this could probably make a good list for my website. So I've got the troubleshooter, right? And this guy is for problems specifically with Access itself. But what you're telling me, Razik, is probably more of a network issue, I'm guessing. But I don't know, but maybe not. If it ran fine for 6 months and now it's starting to run slow, it could be the run down this troubleshooter too. It should be, something on there maybe. I don't know. And I've tried to list the stuff in the order that it becomes more the most likely stuff that'll fix it. Believe it or not, just restart Access. That fixes so many problems. Oh, my database is working weird. Okay, restart it. Oh, now it's working fine. Right? Reboot the computer. That kind of stuff. Reboot the PC. Weird stuff sometimes just is fixed by just rebooting everything. If you haven't yet, shut down your whole network and restart it, including your switch. I had a problem in my own home a little while back where all of my wireless devices were acting weird. Like, Alexa wasn't answering, light bulbs weren't turning on. I just rebooted the Wi-Fi router and everything went back to normal. So, look for the ON/OFF switch. When in doubt, 3-finger salute and restart the computer. But yeah, I think I'll turn this into another checklist for... Maybe I'll just add these things to the pile. I'll add these to the troubleshooter. Anyways, thanks for the question. Next up, question about conditional formatting from Michael. He says, I'd like to use an expression that will show a deadline is approaching within so many days. I need to know that I'm within 30 days of a deadline and the field be highlighted to let me know. I've tried field value is less than date plus 30 as suggested somewhere else, but that doesn't work. That should work. I've also tried greater than and flipping the minus to a plus in all combinations. Is 30 not the right number to use? Yeah. What I'm thinking happens is a very common problem that people have with conditional formatting. Let me walk you through it real quick. I think I talked about this in the video or one of my conditional formatting videos. But if not, here's the most common thing that trips people up. All right, here's my TechHelp free template. You can get a free copy of this off my website if you want to. Here's a customer list that's got a customer sense field on it. Let's pretend that's the field you're trying to put conditional formatting on, okay? All right, so customer sense, go to format, conditional formatting, new rule, all right, field value is, and then in here, go less than, and then in here, you're going to put in date, open close parentheses, plus 30. Or you can do less than or equal to, whichever one you want, okay? Drop this down. Let's put yellow in there. Hit OK. Hit apply. Hit OK. All right. Close it. And then open it. Now, most of these will show up, but let's put one way in the future. Let's put in here 2027-11. All right. And that one's not formatted. Okay. So that absolutely should work. Now, what usually throws people for a loop sometimes is if you come in here and you put in here just date plus 30 like that. Okay. And sometimes, let's see. See, that's not working. Because if you look at it, come here, right? What Access does behind the scenes when you're not watching, you're not paying attention, is it makes date a string. It puts it inside of quotes, which we don't want that. We want the date function. And make sure it's just two parentheses, right? Open parentheses, close parentheses, right next to each other. No extra spaces inside there. All right, and that should do it. Okay. I see you do have the parentheses right. I tried it with spaces around that plus. That's not a problem. So I don't know. Try reproducing the steps and see. Try it again. I got a couple different videos on my website about conditional formatting too. But you are definitely on the right track. Just go through the steps again. Try it with a different field. Oh, another thing I just thought of. Make sure this field is a date field. Make sure it's not a string field. I've seen people try to do that before too. They had their, whatever field has the date in it is a text field. So make sure in your design, right, you're dealing with an actual date time field. And the easiest way to tell for sure is that the number is going to, well, I got this one formatted a certain way, but if you open up the table and it's a date field, the number will line up. The dates and numbers will line up on the right side, whereas text will line up on the left. I've seen people before too take dates and then in a query format them, and then the format from the query will then treat it like a string. See, look, it's working fine now, right? But let's say I made a query, create query design, okay, and let's say I used the customer table. And I'll just bring in a few fields. First name, last name, And then for the customer sense, let's say I make this field new date, and I say format customer sense as, let's say you want mm/dd/yyyy. Okay, with using the format function. And when you run this now, that looks like a valid date. But notice it's on the left side of the cell. That means it's a text value. Always reserve your formatting for the very last step. Don't format queries and then try to work with this as a date. Because now look what happens. If you have new date, save it as, I'll just save this as customer Q. Okay, so now let's take this customer list, design view, we'll get rid of credit limit because we don't have it in there in state. Okay, let's base this now off of that customer Q that we just made. Okay, and now customer sense is missing, so let's change this to that new date. Okay, copy, paste the name, save it, close it, open it, and look. There's my value from the future. It's still showing up as yellow because this is not a valid date field, and you can't compare that to a date in your conditional formatting because it's not a date, it's text. So there's a couple of reasons why it might not work. Hopefully one of those solves it for you. If not, post another message. Don't post replies to this because I almost never see replies to original posts on YouTube, or post it on in the visitor forum on my website since you're not a student already. Okay, I check my website more, and the moderators on my website are fantastic. They answer stuff a whole lot faster than I do. So opposite is true, said I tend to trial and error. You save me hours. Unfortunately, the only way I can help is thank, like, and subscribe. Thanks for everything you do. That's all I ask for. That's great, right? Like and subscribe, help to promote my videos, and I'm happy with that. Thank you. If you can't afford to be a paying member, that's fine with me. I appreciate you. Thank you. I just want to send a quick thanks to everyone who filled out my survey. Once a year or so, I do a survey to all my subscribers and students and everything, just to see, put my finger on the pulse of what you guys want to see for the next, a year or so. And let me share the results. And we got about 113 responses after, 3 or 4 days of this thing being online. So it's what I expected. Most of you want to see Access developer stuff. That's never going to change. That's my forte. That's my expertise. That's what I'm always going to do. SQL Server is second place. Yeah, I've got some SQL Server stuff available for like taking your database online, but I do want to do a series of videos on setting up SQL Server in your office because there's a whole lot of benefits to that too. It makes things a whole lot faster just in your on your network. I'm surprised database design in theory is in third place. So yeah, look for more lessons on that. I'll do some videos on just design theory. Get some nerdy stuff. I can get my old database design and practice books off the shelf that are collecting dust. There's some really good stuff in there. We'll do some. I think we did a video on bubble sorting earlier. We'll do some. There's all kinds of like insertion sorts and stuff I learned in computer science class in college. So we're going back to the early 90s here. I see a lot of you are interested in AI tools. That's good. I got a bunch more ChatGPT type stuff coming out. Power Apps and Dataverse. Yeah, I'd like to get more involved in that too. Power BI, Python. Absolutely. I've been using Python myself for a year or two now. Word and Excel. Yeah, I see a lot of you are into Excel. I'm assuming you guys want to learn more Excel and Word and how it ties into Access. So I am going to probably redo my Word and Excel videos from the beginner lessons because, if I'm going to be promoting Word and Excel videos, I also want to attract new eyeballs, new people, because what my goal really is with Excel, at least, is to redo my Excel course. But this time I want to teach people, okay, here's how you do something simple in Excel. And this is a great tool and it works perfectly for this. But as your needs expand, as you get more data, as your spreadsheet is now 5,000 rows, it might be time to start considering a database. And so I'll be evangelizing Access that way. And like, okay, Excel's great for what it does, but you can't outgrow it. Just like you can outgrow Access as a database engine. Access, in my opinion, and I talk about this all the time, is by far the best desktop rapid application developer for building an interface to work with. The database engine behind it, once you upgrade to SQL Server, is so much more powerful than Access by itself. But that's a whole separate series of videos, folks. And I see not too many of you are interested in PC hardware, so I'm going to throw all those videos in. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have any. I have very few videos on hardware. Although I do get a lot of people asking me for Windows networking. I'm surprised that this is so low because so many people ask me, how do I set up a network, to run my Access database on? So I'm probably going to do a video on that. It's not hard, but as I mentioned earlier, you definitely want to be using a wired network for Access. If you got someone on wireless, set them up with a remote login. Right? Set up a virtual PC somewhere for them. Don't let them run Access over the network unless you're using SQL Server. Because with SQL Server, the server is handling making sure you don't drop packets and stuff. Because the way Access normally works, if you're just using Access without a file server, is each front end is reading and writing to that ACCDB file. And so any one of your front ends can corrupt that back end. If it's in the middle of a write and that wireless signal drops, you have a corrupted database. Potentially. And then you're going to be compacting and repairing every 3 days. I know because years ago, I tried running my Access database on my laptop from my kitchen, and it would, once in a while, nope. So got to go compact and repair and restart everything. So yeah. Anyways, there's the survey results. You can tell the days on the Quick Query Fridays when I don't have anything going on later and I'm just sitting here just talking. Some Fridays I'm like, all right, I got somewhere I got to be in 2 hours, so we got to make this snappy. Today, nope. And I also wanted to mention, sometimes when I see your comments, and I just give you the Spock hand because I want to let you know that I've read your comment and I acknowledge it and I want to give you a reply. And also, when I go to YouTube and look at my comments, I can say, just show me all the ones that are unreplied to so I know which ones I have yet to at least read and reply to and stuff like that. So just don't think the Spock hand is rude. It's me saying, okay, gotcha. G. Johnson says, strange design by Microsoft that you can move a field or a label in layout view without the corresponding piece moving with it. Yeah, the attached label and text box. I can see why you don't prefer it. Yeah, I'm not a fan of layout view. I never have. A lot of features when they first came out were extremely buggy, including like the tab controls, and just other things like that. And I just, I get a bad taste in my mouth for them because they didn't work initially. And so I just don't use them. Like layout view, I'm the same way. I don't like layout view. I've had layout view completely corrupt forms because, you'd switch to layout view to maybe tweak where a label was or move a text box over, and it just blew up your VBA. Now, that might be, my prejudice from when it first came out. That bug might be gone, but I just don't like layout view. I just like to switch back to design view, move things around, and then go save it, close it, reopen it, because that way you make sure your design changes are saved. And if you get problems in your VBA code, it doesn't lock your database up, and then you lost all your form design changes too. So yeah, I don't like layout view. I will never use layout view. I think I used it for one thing in one of my videos. I showed you how to easily take a bunch of controls and line them up together, but no, I don't bother. Next up, Falgun says, hello, sir. I want to learn the details of how and where to use public, private, or sub functions, and along with it, brackets. Watching your videos daily, but this is really magic when you use it, especially in the fitness series. See, I told you guys the fitness series is awesome. Lots of tips in there. I learn a lot from your videos, but need more details from your videos. Well, keep in mind, my TechHelp videos are really designed to just, go over the topic that I'm covering that day. That one topic. The fitness series is an exception. It's a series where we're building a database from scratch. But, I'm not trying to be extremely comprehensive with it in the fact that I'm showing you cool tips and tricks. But, yeah, there's a lot of foundational stuff in there that, you might need previous videos for. And I mentioned that up front. Like, make sure you've watched my Intro to VBA video. Here's another video you can watch on scope and visibility if you want to learn about things like variables, public versus private, like you mentioned. DIM, procedure level scope, that kind of stuff. Subs and functions, right? Here's a video on creating a function, and you can learn, 90% of this by just poking around in my free TechHelp videos, and there's nothing wrong with that. Lots of people do. But that's also why I have a complete developer course where you don't have to jump around from a bunch of different videos. You can just start with level 1 and follow the course all the way through. And I teach things in the order that they should be learned, right? We got our introduction, we got variables, we got if-then statements, and then it builds on the stuff from the previous lessons, unlike my TechHelp videos, which just jump around because that's what they're designed for. They're designed to answer questions and to teach specific things that might not be covered in my course. So if you need more details, then go to my website and search for the topic that you're looking for, and chances are you'll find a topic for it. And if I don't have a video that covers it, let me know. Maybe I'll make one. And if not, well, I got the full course that teaches you. It fills in all the gaps, let's say. Next up, we've got a comment from who I believe is the author of an article that I did a video on a few years ago. And he wrote an article, The 5 Limitations of Microsoft Access, which I reviewed, and I just called him out for being blatantly wrong about Access. And his comment, he says, guess who wrote that article? Oh, hi, how you doing? Are people still using Access? Yes. Yeah, definitely, yes. It is a very cool era-defining software. Yes, it is. But I think the world has moved on somewhat. Well, respectfully, first of all, thank you for the comment. I appreciate you stopping by. I tried to revisit your original article to give it another read-through, but it looks like your site timed out, so sorry to hear that. As for the world moving on, I'd say the world has added new tools, but Access never left. For small and mid-sized businesses that need a solid database for Office users, there's nothing better. Pair it with SQL Server, and you've got a world-class solution. So yes, there are lots of great new software applications and tools and things to, web-based databases and things for mobile. But on the desktop, for desktop PCs, for office workers that actually, use the database in their business, Access can't be beat. I challenge anyone to come up with a better desktop-based rapid application development tool that's network ready, integrates with Office, integrates with SQL Server, and is easy to use and learn as Microsoft Access. But again, thanks for your comment and thanks for stopping by. And with that, we're done with Quick Queries 56. I hope you learned something. Live long and prosper, my friends. Enjoy your weekend. I'll see you on Monday. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button right now and give me a like. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel, which is completely free. And make sure you click that bell icon and select all to receive notifications whenever I post a new video. Do you need help with your Microsoft Access project? Whether you need a tutor, a consultant, or a developer to build something for you, check out my Access Developer Network. It's a directory I put together personally of Access experts who can help with your project. Visit my website to learn more. Any links or other resources that I mentioned in the video can be found in the description text below the video. Just click on that Show More link right there. YouTube's pretty good about hiding that, but it's there. Just look for it. Now, if you have not yet tried my free Access Level 1 course, check it out now. It covers all the basics of Microsoft Access, including building forms, queries, reports, tables, all that stuff. It's over 4 hours long. You can find it on my website or my YouTube channel. I'll include a link below you can click on. And did I mention it's completely free? And if you like Level 1, Level 2 is just $1. That's it. And it's free for members of my YouTube channel at any level. Speaking of memberships, if you're interested in joining my channel, you get all kinds of awesome perks. Silver members get access to all of my extended cut TechHelp videos, and there's hundreds of them by now. They also get one free beginner class each month, and yes, those are for my full courses. Gold members get the previous perks plus access to download all of the sample databases that I build in my TechHelp videos. Plus, you get access to my code vault where I keep tons of different functions and all kinds of source code that I use. And gold members get one free expert class every month after completing the beginner series. Platinum members get all of the previous perks, plus they get all of my beginner courses, all of them from every subject, and you get one free advanced or developer class every month after finishing the expert series. And you can become a diamond sponsor and have your name listed on the sponsor page on my website. So that's it. Once again, my name is Richard Rost. Thank you for watching this video brought to you by accesslearningzone.com. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something today. Live long and prosper, my friends. I'll see you next time.